Hi, and welcome to another episode of the I Am Jen Wilson, the Healing Rebel podcast. I am very excited today to have my guest with me, who is Renee of Sagittarian Tarot. And we've known each other for quite a few years now through the Glasgow Girls Club, yet another GC guest on. And more recently, we've worked together, and we'll probably get into a little bit of that during today's call. So why don't you give a more detailed introduction to who you are and what you do in the world?
Great. So I'm Renee. I am the witch behind Sagittarian Tarot. So I help women step into their power and unlock their magic so that they can begin to create a life that they really love. And I do this through techniques like tarot, astrology, and witchcraft. I host events around Glasgow, bringing women together in witchcraft circles. I do one-to-one work, whether that's tarot reading, astrology, or more in-depth spiritual coaching. And then I have a whole other side to my business and my life as well, which is more around content creation. So I also write a food blog for kitchen witches. Jen, I'm sure you'd be horrified by the recipes there because not a single one is healthy, but they're all really delicious.
I have tasted your treats, and they are. I mean, and I don't have a sweet tooth, and I would never go out into a cafe and buy a cake. But your stuff is delicious.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And with my food blog, it is for kitchen witches. So it's teaching you how to bring that magical element into the food that you create and how to make that multiple times every single day of your life mundane task of feeding yourself feel a little bit more spiritually connected. What else? I'm also the creator and co-host of the Coven of Awesomeness podcast, where we talk about everyday well-being through the lens of witchcraft.
Amazing. You've got so many plates spinning. And that comes down to your star sign in your birth chart, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at my astrology chart, you will see that I cannot sit still. I cannot be contained. You cannot stop me from doing all of the things that I love and exploring a lot of different avenues of life. I came into witchcraft relatively late in life compared to a lot of people. I know a lot of people start getting into it in their teens, but I didn't discover witchcraft until I was 40. And I have just become completely obsessed with all things witchy, mystical, magical. It just felt so right for me instantly that it just took over my life. So I can't stop talking about it.
So I've got two questions there then. So first one is, what was it that brought you to witchcraft? And the second part of that would be, when you say witchcraft, what do you mean by it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll actually answer the second question first. So to me, witchcraft is it's a practice. First of all, it's not a religion. It's not a set belief system. Every witch approaches their craft differently. And the wonderful thing about it is that there are no rules, but it's all about the intentional use of your energy and the energy of the things around you in the natural world to manifest an intention into your life. So anything that you do to change your energy or to change the energy of a situation can be magic. So that goes from things as simple as, um, simple mindset work right up to elaborate spells and rituals that you might see in fancy altars on Instagram or YouTube videos with creative spells with a bathtub full of rose petals or something like that. So it can really vary, but you don't need any actual tools. I love to use the candles and the crystals and the herbs in my witchcraft practices when I'm creating spells, but you actually don't need any of that. The magic comes from you and your energy.
Yeah, yeah. So it's quite removed from like Roald Dahl's The Witches.
Yeah, so witchcraft is, we use words like witchcraft and magic, but it all exists within the actual physical laws of nature. There's
Yeah.
nothing supernatural about
Mhm.
it. So it is different from what you see in fantasy novels and movies and things like that. But when you're experiencing it, it definitely feels like actual magic.
Yeah.
You're like, how did I make that happen in my life? Well, because you set an intention and you put all of your energy into it, and you've just never been that intentional about something before. And so once you unlock your power, you're like, oh yeah, I'm definitely a witch.
Yeah, and I think people who have any kind of belief in whatever it is, whether it's a religion or a faith in something, if you have
Mhm.
that, it feels really special to you, and it does give you that deeper connection rather than just going through life on the hamster wheel of this is just life's just happening to me.
Mhm,
Like,
mhm. Yeah, it very much, witchcraft was the thing for me that put me back into my power, that gave me ownership over my life. People come to that realization, they come to that power in a variety of different ways.
yeah,
And witchcraft and magic was what worked for me.
yeah,
And the first question that you asked, how did I discover witchcraft, actually was, now that I think back on it, a really beautiful magical synchronicity that there was an interview of some witches on a news podcast that I listened to on National Public Radio in the US. So I still listen to all my old US news, even though I've lived in Scotland for 10 years. Um, and this was in 2018. It was October. They were talking about the rise of modern witchcraft, but these weren't like, you know, people who looked like objectively very weird, like running around with pyramids on their heads and wearing long robes. And like, sometimes the media will try to make witchcraft and metaphysical practices intentionally look very bizarre, right? These were women who were university professors, published authors, intellectuals, professionals, very put together, well educated, well spoken people, and they were being presented as that, and they were being taken seriously. It was a real conversation, not a, oh, isn't this funny that people do witchcraft?
yeah,
And I had only ever on the periphery seen it being portrayed as a bunch of weirdos. So I thought, that's silly, right? Um, but when I heard these women speak about how they practiced modern witchcraft, how it had affected their lives, how it made them feel so powerful, I was just so intrigued. And it was actually my husband, because he was in the room when I was listening to this, turned to me and said, "You're going to become a witch now, aren't you?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe." It wasn't until about 9 months later that I really let that sink in, and I found not only the time and space, but also the courage to go and look at this thing that seemed kind of a little weird. But in that time that it took to marinate and for me to really have the time to like do proper research, as soon as I started reading up on it, I was like, this is basically a framework for what I've always believed about
yeah.
life and the universe and our connection to something
Mhm.
beyond us. And it was just there waiting for me. We always say you don't become a witch, you just realize you always were one.
Yeah, yeah, that's really beautiful. It's interesting when you're saying about the intellectuals that you heard like speaking. It's making me think about the Witches of Scotland podcast,
Oh,
and
uh-huh.
that they're going into like the history of the witchcraft trials and stuff like that. And so many of the women who were killed back in, I can't remember which years it was, hundreds of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those women were self-sufficient, they were the healers, they were the intelligent women who weren't following the rules
Mm-hmm.
of the patriarchal system, and that's why they were then getting tried, and they weren't doing anything out there. They were
Mm-hmm.
just connecting to nature and connecting to that feminine energy, and
Yeah.
that's why they were being persecuted for it.
Mm-hmm. And oftentimes they were, well, this comes from my research I've read on witchcraft trials in the early American colonies, but oftentimes, as you say, they were independent women
Mm-hmm.
who didn't have a man to be responsible for them. And often they owned their own property.
Yeah,
And that was very threatening to the
yeah,
system.
yeah. The system wanted that land.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's quite harrowing. But we've come a long way since
Yeah.
then, which is we're very grateful for that
Hmm.
we can.
Absolutely. And just want to say it is such a huge blessing and privilege to be able to openly practice my witchcraft, because there are still places in the world where it's not safe to do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I heard that one that the Witches of Scotland podcast recently. They were talking about like in African countries, they still
Hmm.
are very much killing people for helping people.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Or, similar to the witchcraft trials in Europe in the 15th and 16th century, people are being falsely accused of
Yeah.
witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and then being persecuted for that, just as they were hundreds of years ago.
Yeah. And when you decided that you were going to be stepping into this power, I was going to say become a witch, but you weren't, because you were already aware, but you were stepping into that power. How did everybody around you embrace that?
The response for me, thankfully, has been largely positive. I didn't immediately come out and tell everybody I knew, I'm a witch now. Like, that's none of their business. They don't necessarily need to know. I knew that my husband was going to be supportive right up front because he could already see it coming. He is a scientist. He studied physics. He's an engineer. He's very much like, there's one right answer. There's one right way to figure it out. But even he has started to see how powerful these practices have been for me, and asks for me to pull him a tarot card every now and then and things like that. So, people eventually begin to open up to their intuition when they see how powerful it was. And now I've lost track of the question because I started talking about something completely different.
It was how other people embraced it. But interesting, you're saying it, like, to me, a scientist is somebody who's very curious about everything. So for a scientist to be like, no, that's not, and only wanting a definitive answer, to me, that's a strange way, because science is not definitive.
Yeah, well, I think that it's like something that you can prove, I think probably is what I meant. And a lot of, there has been a lot of research on, general mindset, on, there's been a lot of studies on intuition and why we have this intuition and the evolutionary benefits of intuition and things like that. Like, there is science to back it up. And I have read about this science and thought, oh, that's really interesting. And then as a triple fire Sagittarius, completely just like forgotten it. Like, it's there. I'm glad it exists, but I don't ever feel the need to back up what I do with a lot of hard facts. I know that it works from my experience and from the experience of other people that I have worked with. So if you want to find the science on it, you can. It's there.
Yeah.
I just don't care that much.
It exists if it's that, if that's the validation that you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also don't think that science and spirituality are diametrically opposed. I think that they very much flow together, and you don't have to choose between being scientific or spiritual. You can be both at the same time, because, science is just that, the parts that we have figured out, we know how they work now. So now it's science. But before that, it was all magic.
Yeah. And I think some of the scientists that have had the biggest breakthroughs are the ones that have really leaned into the spiritual intuition, because if they could only look at stuff that had already been worked out, they would never be able to find anything else that works out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you really do want scientists that are asking questions and looking for new answers and trying to find out the reasons for the things that we don't understand yet. But for me, I know, I can explain it to you again, because that's not the kind of information I store in my brain, but we know how a rainbow works. We know exactly how that's formed. And it still makes you feel this awe and wonder every time you see it. It's a spiritual experience.
You still want to stop and look at it and look at that beautiful rainbow. Oh,
yeah.
You still want to believe that there's a pot of gold at the end of it.
Yeah.
So I recently, a few months ago now, had my birth chart and human design chart, the celestial self-discovery session with you. What do you love about the astrology part of it, and talk more about that?
Yeah, I am definitely an amateur astrologer. I'm still somebody who very much has to go and like look up things about your chart, but I am also passionately curious about the charts of everyone that I meet now. And the more I learn about astrology, the more excited I get, because it can reveal so much about you. And it's just another tool to help you understand yourself more deeply. And again, step into your power. Empowerment is at the core of everything that witchcraft is to me. It's all about how you can make yourself more powerful as a person. And knowing these things, examining these things about your chart and all these different aspects of your personality. If you don't believe it, you're going to find excuses to not believe in it, no matter what I say. But if you're open to this, to even to the possibility, and you start to see the ways that what you have lived out as a human being so far in your life is revealed, is held in this astrological information about you, it just really gives you permission to be your most authentic self. It gives you permission to let go of all of the conditioning that has told you that the way that you are is wrong. You were born this way, and it's all there in the stars. It was imprinted in you in the moment of your birth. That's not to say that it controls you, but
Mm-hmm.
it just is an extra layer of absolutely incredibly valuable information about who you are and what you came here to be and to do in the world, and the ways that you can do that with the least resistance.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely what I would say I found most beneficial was all the things that I was trying to fix about myself that I
Mm-hmm.
fix, and it was just a constant battle. And it was like, well, that here's your chart. You've
Mm-hmm.
got all this Pisces in here,
Uh-huh.
all this water, and then on the opposite, there's the Virgo rising, and just all this placement. And I was like, oh, right, okay. As a child, I knew so many things about
Mm-hmm.
what I needed, but the adults around me, mostly at school, would tell me I was wrong and try and fit me into the box of what they wanted the rest of the class to be like. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, there's something wrong with me because I'm not the same as them.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah,
rebel in me wanted to push back against it, but was scared to. And yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. And especially with so many prominent Pisces placements in your chart, for you, Jen, um, you're definitely not meant to fit into any box. That Pisces energy needs to be able to flow in all directions. And I've been a teacher. I've worked in public education, so it's not necessarily, the fault of a teacher that this system is set up the way that it is, that we have all this baggage from, the industrial era that has said that school needs to be a training ground for everybody to become a laborer in the capitalist society. Sorry, I'm going on a bit of a rant, but
I'm here for it. I am
but
not here for that.
yeah, what astrology and human design teaches us, really, really emphasizes from my experience, is that we are so individual and there is never one right way to do things. And it's really about what you need. And what works for me might have amazing, wonderful success, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for you in exactly the same way.
Yeah, yeah. And that's when I'm teaching movement, like I teach Pilates and yoga, and I say that to my class all the time. I'm like, just because this is what my body's doing and how it's feeling, because somebody will say to me, oh, am I doing this right? And I'm like, tell me what you're feeling. How
Mhm.
does that feel in your body? Because visually it looks fine, but
Yeah.
physically it might be feeling completely off to you. So just because this is what it says in the book and this is what it says, what a picture looks like, your body's going to show up completely different because the history
Mhm.
of movement through life. And then the
Yeah.
same when you do massage and Reiki, everybody's going to respond differently to it. So I'm not here to tell you this is how you're going to feel. You need to
Mhm.
tell me how you're feeling so we can adjust it to make sure it fits for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're not just looking at the human body as like a physical machine either. You're also wanting to probably look at the energy flow that a person is experiencing when they're doing a certain movement. It's not just, what muscles are being engaged. It is how it feels on a metaphysical level as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think so many people are never, we're not asked that at any point. So when you say
Hmm.
Am I back?
Lost you for a moment. You're back.
I think I froze. I think Chris is downstairs with about 5 devices on the internet. And I'm like, I need just one device. I was just saying that we are not taught to tune into our bodies and listen to how they feel and then respond to that. So when you ask somebody to do it, it can feel really alien to them.
And people can be really surprised that, if they have an emotional response in like, wrapped up in a movement. We hold tension in different places in our bodies. And when you are stretching and moving those parts of your bodies, you'll know this much better than me. Like, it releases much more than just tension in your muscles. All sorts of feelings can come pouring out that you weren't ready for.
Yeah, because there's now so much more research into the fascia and the fascia body and how every single emotion is stored there. And if we're holding it down and holding it tense, then that tenses up the fascia, which then restricts movement and causes physiological problems, which then causes problems like health issues. And obviously, working through my own health issues and unpicking this and trying to unravel and unwind all that tension just gradually built up and built up and built up over the last 46 years.
Yeah. And so if magic and witchcraft is the practice of intentionally focusing your energy, then don't try to tell me that it doesn't exist when we can see the results in our physical bodies of not releasing the energy that needs to be processed.
Yeah. What are your favorite witchcraft practices?
Probably tarot and moon magic. So one of the main services I offer is one-to-one custom tarot readings. So I use my tarot cards on a daily basis, and I use them to help my clients in a number of different ways. I teach tarot as well, so that other people can use the amazing wisdom of this system. These 78 cards somehow manage to encompass all of life. So I use tarot quite a lot for myself and for other people it's sort of a mirror to yourself. It helps you to tap into your intuition and see yourself, your life from a slightly different angle than you have been able to see it before. And it just reveals an extra level of information for you. And if you have a deep understanding of how to pull out the right energies from your tarot cards, it's mind-blowing. It's absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, well, my uncle passed away recently, and on the day of his funeral, I pulled a card out for myself, and the card that came out was the Three of Swords. The cards that Chris, my partner, pulled out was the King of Cups.
Okay. Yeah. So a lot of emotions, a lot of, tender heart. And, going to funerals, sometimes people say clumsy things that can be a little bit wounding without intention. So, yeah, I can definitely see how you would be feeling Three of Swords on a day like that for sure.
Yeah, but it was interesting because Chris had just said to me, he's like, I'm here for you, and then the card he pulled out was that King of Cups.
And he's ready to be the one to hold you, to support you, to be a vessel for your emotions to flow through so you don't have to keep it all in yourself.
Yeah, and that's just like, see, the cards know. The cards know.
They do. They absolutely do. And then the other practice that I work with really regularly, as I mentioned, is moon magic. So this is the practice of following the phases and the signs of the moon and using them as a guide for your life. So when you have worked with the moon for an extended period of time, you can start to notice the way that your energy aligns with the moon. And there are sort of general, sort of big, broad keywords that we can put with each moon phase, but it really comes from your experience of how does this phase of the moon actually make me feel? And then if you want to add on the layer of astrology with that as well, how does the moon's current sign make me feel? And then what do I want to do with that information? But for me, especially the moon phase is a really powerful opportunity for me to stop and reflect on a regular basis because the moon consistently every about 28 and a half days goes through a new cycle. So every time that there's a new moon, I can give myself a chance to pause and think, okay, who do I want to be right now? Am I still on the right track? Do I need to make any adjustments? What is it that I want to feel over the next moon phase? And, I do this actually with the first quarter full and last quarter moon as well. I have different questions that I will always ask myself, just pausing in my journal, pulling some cards to say, for example, the full moon, right? What do I want to shine a light on right now? What do I want to celebrate? And what am I ready to start letting go of? What has not been useful? What has not been pushing me forward? What's been keeping me stuck or holding me back? And how can I start to let that go? And so if you do this consistently, then at least for me and for quite a few of my clients, I've noticed that you start actually meeting your goals and manifesting your intentions a little bit more quickly because you're not, sending out a wish to the universe. And while it is important to surrender your desires and all that kind of stuff, that doesn't mean that you just don't do anything about it. And
Yeah.
so if you're checking in with yourself on a regular basis with each phase of the moon, then you can just make those adjustments to your energy. How can I make sure I'm staying aligned with what I want and taking inspired action that is, again, intuitively aligned for me to actually move in the direction of the life that I want to create for myself. So it's just so helpful to have that natural system that
Yes.
exists outside of the sort of arbitrary Gregorian calendar that we all live by. It's very much in tune with the seasons and the natural world. And I love the moon. I'm obsessed with her.
I just love when there's a full moon out, just it's like the rainbow, it stops and takes your breath away and you're like, this is,
Yeah.
but still,
Mhm.
it is just, you just want to, when it's a clear sky, you just want to stare and
Yeah.
absorb and take it in and just be like, wow, this is magic.
Yeah, it's no wonder so many ancient religions, ancient belief systems had deities devoted to the moon. Like she is breathtaking. You can't not notice her.
Yeah, yeah. And the moon is probably is one area that I tried to get in sync with and follow, and just my brain just wasn't holding that in.
Hmm.
It's just very confused with it. And I was like, just like you don't have to know everything about everything, Jen.
Yeah.
Just go.
Yeah, if it's a struggle for you, if there's something in your witchcraft practice that you're trying to learn and you're like, this is hard, I hate it, I don't want to do this, guess what? You don't have to do it. There's no rules in witchcraft. You can do whatever you want. So if it doesn't feel right for you, find the thing that does. Remember, witchcraft is about empowering yourself. So move toward the thing that makes you feel more powerful.
Yeah, yeah. Which is very good advice for all of well-being, all of
Hmm.
this journey is, if the cold dips don't work for you, if the breath work doesn't work for you, if all these different millions of modalities that are out there are not working for
Hmm.
you, the ones that do, and you can put it under the umbrella of witchcraft, or you can just put it under the umbrella of your daily practice.
Hmm. Yeah. I like to call everything witchcraft because that makes it fun for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And it makes me excited to try it out.
yeah, yeah. And
And you,
that's just that, finding the thing that makes you excited,
uh-huh.
that makes you want to do it.
Yeah,
And when you've
exactly.
got that, then there's your motivation. Then you're not thinking about willpower.
Hmm.
Because
Yeah.
willpower burns out. It's what's igniting that flame inside you.
Hmm.
What's you
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. You're much more likely to do something that you're passionate and excited about than something that you have to force yourself to do. So stop forcing yourself to live by someone else's rules and start living by your own rules.
how it shouldn't feel rebellious, but it does.
Mm. Hmm. I mean, just especially, I think, for, I'm going to say, especially for women, because this has been my human experience and the experience of so many people that I know. I don't know what it's like to be another gender, so I can't speak to that. But I think that for centuries, our basic needs sometimes, and especially our desires, our soul desires, have been repressed by society. And so the simple act of doing something that makes you happy for no other reason than that it makes you happy, that's
Mhm.
rebellious.
Yeah. How much do you know about or think about the witch wound being present in us and
Mhm.
women's?
So this is something that I am definitely aware of, and I think something that affects different people to different levels. So I have read the book Heal the Witch Wound. I can see the cover, but I can't think of the author's name off the top of my head. And found that book really fascinating, and can definitely see this idea of, this sort of ancestral trauma that has built up over centuries from women being so oppressed during the witch craze, during the burning times, um, that it has really caused this sort of overall cultural quieting, shrinking of women, uh, that only in the last generation or two we've really started to break away from and have an awareness around. But I think especially for, like, I'm 46, I was a teenager in the 90s, and so there was a bit of rebellion then, but it's nothing like what my 24-year-old child is experiencing, and the freedom that they get to have around their body and, creating their own identity. It was definitely much better than what my mom experienced, but I think there's still quite a bit of healing from that ancestral trauma for our generation.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Although I'm seeing more women in their like 70s having a bigger voice now. Probably social media has got a lot of
Hmm.
help, help with that. Like my friend Janice, her page and like her Nourished by Nature is like blowing up at the moment. She's
Oh,
getting
wonderful.
tens of thousands of follows on all the different platforms, and her videos are seeing millions. And she's like, I'm just telling people what I'm doing, but I'm stepping into that throne and
Hmm.
helping people because I want people
Yeah.
to know what's possible. One of my clients this morning was like, Jen, I'm not staying quiet anymore. She's 75, 76. She's like, I'm telling them how it is. I'm like, yay, woohoo.
Yeah, absolutely. As much as, so much of the world is a dumpster fire right now, and there's so many terrible things happening in so many places, there is also this massive spiritual awakening happening. And so many people seeing that they don't want to continue to live in the kind of oppressive world that we've created. And it can feel really overwhelming. But the thing about manifesting, this thing about magic, is that you have to believe that it's possible.
Yeah,
So the moment we stop believing that we can create a better world is the moment that, oppression wins.
yeah,
So we
yeah,
have to we have to believe it, and we have to do everything we can to create the kind of world where people have the freedom to be their radical authentic selves.
yeah. And there's always going to be pushback to that because the
Hmm.
people that have built this system don't want to lose control. So of course
Yeah.
that as we start this rising up and saying, no, we're not playing these games anymore, they are going to push back, and they're push
Hmm.
back harder than they've ever pushed before because they were getting
Hmm.
before. And their system will have to burn down for something. That's that whole phoenix rising. It has to burn
Yep.
down for something
Hmm.
better to come through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not going to be easy to change the
Yeah,
whole world,
yeah,
but it is necessary,
yeah,
and we can't quit,
yeah. When is change ever easy?
right? Yeah, I mean, even on a personal level, I talk about this with my clients all the time. I was meeting with somebody yesterday, and she was like, I want this thing for myself, but also I just want to, like, be lazy and watch TV. And I was like, yeah, I get that. I totally get that, because you know what's actually happening. I can see this from the outside, and it's hard to see it from the inside because you're in your life and you're like, this is just how it is. But this is why people need to work with coaches, because they can see you from the outside, right? This is your subconscious trying to self-sabotage you because it's afraid of change. The
Yeah,
only way to get to growth is to go through fear. The only way to get out of your comfort zone is to become uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just get ready to be uncomfortable.
Yeah. And there's lots of different steps to that discomfort. I mean, you can pull the band-aid off and just free fall, fingers crossed,
Mm-hmm.
or you can take it in small incremental steps, and again, what works for one person will not necessarily work for the other. So it's
Absolutely.
what today can you just feel a little bit uncomfortable with,
Mm-hmm.
and confidence in that?
Yep. What ickiness are you prepared to take on right now? You don't have to blow up your life and quit your job and become a professional witch and just hope it all works out like some people did. You can take baby steps. You can make small changes, and they add up over time.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the same for every change that you want to make. It's what's the next step?
Mm-hmm.
You have to look at the top of the mountain right now.
Yeah, yeah.
You can glance up
And
and again, but
mhm. And most of the time, the universe is not going to, send you a neat little map that tells you the next 500 things you need to do to get to your ultimate goal. Unfortunately, it tends to only show us one step at a time, which
yeah,
if you're somebody who likes to have a plan and likes to like be in control and know what's going to happen and exactly when, is super frustrating. But
yeah,
again, that's maybe the discomfort that some of us have to learn. I'm talking to myself here. That's the discomfort some of us have to learn to live with.
mhm, yeah, and also accept that sometimes when you take those steps forward, it feels like you've gone back.
Hmm.
Well, you haven't, because going back would be in staying exactly where you were, not taking the step in the first place. So
Hmm.
you step out and it kind of doesn't go to plan, and it feels like it's gone sideways or backwards.
Hmm.
Well, you've still done a step, or you've discovered something that isn't right for you, or that you don't
Hmm.
want. You're like, oh no, actually that's not the direction. Let's try
Yeah.
something else.
And that was super valuable information for you to find out. You
Yes.
you tried something and then you learned that you didn't want that. And now that helps you get so much more clear on what you do want. And
Mm-hmm.
the more clear you can get on what you want, the easier it is for you to attract it. So sometimes you have to fail, sometimes you have to mess up, sometimes you have to make mistakes. And that's not the universe sending you in the wrong direction. That is the universe giving you evidence of what doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. The thing that's coming to mind here for me is one of my friends, when I was single, one of my friends was like, you know what you don't want in a relationship, so you need to get clear on what you do want. So
Hmm.
write up. So I'd written this list of all the things that I did want, and then I accidentally went on 2 dates.
Okay.
I didn't know there were dates.
Okay.
I thought I was just going for tea and a chat with somebody that I
Uh-huh.
knew. But having gone on those accidental dates, I was like, oh, but there was lots of things that would have ticked boxes, but then there was big red flags over here. So then I
Hmm.
added more things to the list that
Yep.
and this to get much more specific, and then Chris appeared.
Yeah. And it's, you're identifying your desires is an evolution. You don't
Mhm.
just, set your goals and then that's it. It's a constant refinement of understanding the kind of person that you want to be. Because, you hear a lot in the sort of new age manifestation, prosperity gospel world about like make your vision board and put your dream house and your dream car and 50 million pounds and all this material stuff on it. And if you want that, that is great, absolutely. But what I want to help people discover is, how do you want to feel, who do you want to be, and how can you trust the universe to provide the things that you need and the direction that you need to go in order to feel that way and to be that person. Because we all can think of examples of people who have the big house and have the big car and have the fancy clothes and the designer handbags. They're not happy.
Mhm. They're chasing for more.
So, how do you want to feel?
Yeah.
That's at the
I think
core of it all.
that's something that I really missed when I did vision boards more than 10 years ago. to experience in life. And then when I got sick and I couldn't do any of those things, and I'm sitting looking at the board, and I had a big clock that said slow down, relax, time off, and I was so busy trying to get on the hamster wheel, trying to get all those fun things, that I missed the slow down, relax. And that was all the stuff that I actually needed.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't thinking about how I needed to feel to be in those places that I thought I wanted to be.
Yeah. I have to confess that I missed a big chunk of what you were saying because you were frozen for a second, but I think I got the gist of it. Yeah, I think that you also have to find the guides that really resonate with you and the people that you connect with. And some of the people that I was following, that I was learning from when I first began my journey, I have realized that that's not actually the direction that I want to go in. That's not actually what I want to learn. That's not who I want to become. And so I have given myself permission to let that go. It's not a failure, it's a learning. But some of the people, like one of the people that that was on that initial podcast interview that I listened to back in 2018, is still a hero of mine, and I've read her book and I listened to her podcast. Pam Grossman, she's amazing. And so, you know, it's okay to for you to shift your own understanding about your own spiritual journey as well.
Yeah, because as you grow, you change, and your needs change, and your desires change, and your outlook of the world changes, and you'll outgrow some people. Some people used to like, oh no, their message, I thought it resonated, but actually it doesn't.
And it was maybe something that I needed at the time.
Yeah.
And I found it inspirational in the moment, and it helped me to, as you say, to refine my own identity. But it's not something that I need anymore.
Yeah. So what have you got coming up? What exciting things are happening in your world?
So at this exact moment, I'm not sure when this is going to go out, but at this exact moment, I am getting ready to host another round of my tarot course, Tarot for Everyone. So this is a 6-week online course that goes through all 78 cards in depth. It's small group. There's a combination of pre-recorded videos, so you can take all of your notes and all of that and rewatch as many times as you want. And then there's live sessions so that we can come together. I have a background in education, so I need to be teaching actual human beings. We come together once a week to discuss the cards that were covered in that week. You get to answer all your questions, and we get to actually have a conversation about them. And I absolutely love that. So that starts on July 20th. And then I also am working on a little something in the background that's going to launch in August. It's a new 90-day coaching program called Reclaiming Your Magic. And I'm very, very excited about that. But it's in the sort of background work phase right now. So
exciting things to come.
Yeah. And then, of course, I always have monthly circles, Sabbat celebrations. I have a Moon Magic membership that's ongoing as well. So there's stuff that's always ticking away in the background, and easy ways for people to get involved in what I do. If you want to come along to a group thing, if you want to get a one-to-one tarot reading, there's lots of simple things to access. But those are kind of the two main things I'm focusing on right now.
Nice. That's exciting. Where is the best places for people to find all your stuff?
So you can find my podcast, the Coven of Awesomeness podcast, on your favorite podcast app. If it is not on your podcast app, let me know, because I have put it up everywhere as far as I'm concerned. You can find my recipes and witch tips at awesomeon20.com. And if you're interested in my magical work, my website is sagittariantarot.com, and I'm Sagittarian Tarot on Instagram. That is the social media platform where I hang out most. So if you want to send me a DM, get a conversation going, Instagram is the best place to find me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you so much for all your knowledge and wisdom and energy and wonderfulness in the world.
Thank you. This has been so fun, Jen.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. If you have been watching today's podcast and you feel like somebody needs to see or hear something that we have spoken about, please do make sure that you share and follow, subscribe, whatever it is that you do on whichever platform it is that you do that on.